Okay, so in this tutorial let's move on to another triple store that we can use with Sparqlycode. We're going to talk about a product called BigData from a company called Systap again in the United States. Interesting that their product's called BigData. They do actually have a registered trademark on BigData, so I think the market that we commonly now refer to as Big Data kind of evolved after they named their product. It is probably the only triple store that I have attempted to use in a real production environment, so it has been used on the battlefield. So if I was to start by just saying again how you would get hold of this product, there might be a couple of other ways of getting a hold of Big Data, but the way that I did this for the purpose of demonstrating today was I used their source code repository, which was a Git based one. I cloned it and then I simply ran as instructed here the ant target for starting Big Data, which runs it up on your local host on port 9999. You can point your browser at it and you get a simple user interface. I'm not going to go into the details of their user interface. I'll do that maybe in a more focused tutorial on Big Data itself, as I will do for all the triple stores we're going to explore. All I'm trying to do is demonstrate how easy it is leveraging the liquidity, if you like, of RDF to be able to move your data and its model from one triple store to another. So I'm going to carry out the simple steps that I did in a previous tutorial. First of all, we're going to want to create a repository. A repository in the context of Big Data is known as a namespace. We can create a new namespace. There's a few options on here. In all the triple stores there's normally an option to select whether you want to perform inference or perform some kind of full text indexing over it, but as I say, that's out of scope for this particular tutorial. So I'm just going to create a namespace called Sparqlycode, which you do like so. And then we want to say that that particular namespace becomes the default one we're working with. So by selecting it on the right here, it's saying current namespace is now Sparqlycode, and we can move on to actually getting some of our Sparqlycode RDF data into the triple store. So I've moved to the update tab. I'm now browsing to my exercise data, and I'm taking again the data for Commons Bean Utils. Okay. If it's a small file, it'll try and load it into this dialog box, but this is much too large for that, so it's just giving us a warning here that it's too large to display, but we can still update it. So we run update. On the left here there's a little indicator saying that 17,487 triples were accepted into the triple store. If we now go to the query, we can start to run some of the queries that I have done in previous tutorials. So let's have a look at the queries that we have. Let's start with the very basic one, just searching for types that are existing in the Sparqlycode. So we paste it into the query window, we say exit, and we get some results back. Each one of the triple stores will have various extra information they provide you, such as the query execution time, maybe a query plan, things like that. But again, I'll cover those in some other tutorials. Right now we're looking at the output of that query, which is a list of the types that are found within this particular data set. So we've got instances of classes, constructors, fields, interfaces and methods. So let's run another query, get a little bit more adventurous, step by step. This time I'm having a little look at the properties that this data appears to have. So we start to actually see some of the vocabulary Intuition has in their ontology for Java. We're seeing concepts like the access rights, arguments, constructors, whether the class extends another class, etc. So we didn't have to do anything to be able to accommodate Sparqlycode. RDF is allowing us to go from one triple store to another and carry the data and the model. Let's do another example query, Sparkle query. This time we're going to explicitly ask to list concepts of a certain type, and this will be the Java classes. So we're specifying the prefix, and we're actually saying get us all the things that are of type Java class. So execute, and we suddenly start seeing some real data that represents Org Apache Commons bean utils. So these are all the classes. There's one particular class here, I think it's bean utils bean, that we can now go on and ask a few more questions about. You can see in this UI it has become a link that we could click and start to navigate through. As you start to get triple stores with more functionality in the user interfaces, this is what you would expect to get, so that you could navigate through the graph just by clicking on the results. We won't follow that today. As I say, I'll do that in another tutorial. For now, let's just actually get an explicit query for that particular class that I just mentioned, bean utils bean. So I'm always trying to keep everything very simple here, just so that the main point is clear. So we've got a few more prefixes in this Sparkle query. I think I said before they're not actually used, but they do help with sometimes with how the results are formatted, making them more readable. So we're selecting the predicate and the object. If you know a little bit about Sparkle, those terms will be familiar to you. But we're specifying as a subject the actual URI of this class being utils bean. So if I run that, we start to get many properties related to this particular class. Now we're getting a value for its access rights, public, references to constructors, fields, and the methods. And I'm really tempted to click on these links and start to explore what is in a method, what other concepts are there, but I'm not going to, because that will open up so many more interesting concepts that I really would have to explain them. I just want to keep this tutorial very clear. So this is big data. It's another triple store. You can take any Sparqlycode, because we're leveraging this concept of RDF. You can take any Sparqlycode and place it in any triple store and very quickly be able to start to query it, to investigate the model, and to investigate the code and the configuration that's represented by the RDF. What we'll do is, in the next tutorial, we'll move on to something that's a bit more commercial. It's a product from a company called Franz in San Francisco called AllegroGraph. Thanks for listening.
For further information on Sparqlycode, visit our webpage at www.sparqlycode.com, or connect with us on Twitter @Sparqlycode, or email us on info@sparqlycode.com. For expertise on semantic web technology in general, visit our webpage at www.intuition.net.